Essentially, you see these performance dashboards, fancy, flashy dashboards that show a ton of metrics and ton of numbers. But at the end of the day, the business is losing money. It's not like, their business is bad. It's just that they're spending in the wrong places.
Welcome to the Profit and Proof podcast. I'm your host, Joie Roberts. Today's episode is one every growth leader should hear. I am joined by Rohit Maheswaran, who has spent his career focused on closing one of the biggest gaps in modern marketing, the difference between what dashboards report and what actually drives growth. We break down what's broken in measurement today and how leaders can make decisions with real confidence instead of guesswork. If you care about proving impact and protecting budget, this conversation's for you. Rohit, welcome.
Hi, Joey. Nice to see you, and thank you for having me on.
Let's dive right in. This is going to be a really jam-packed, exciting conversation. Tell us what's broken in modern growth right now.
So what's broken is essentially where marketers have started confusing or have always been confusing measurement with the actual truth of what's happening on the ground. We're constantly optimizing against what looks good on dashboards, against what's actually creating new incremental demand and growth. I don't mean that data is useless. We've never had more data in the world, right? The issue is that while a lot of it is essentially directionally helpful, but it's not decision grade. It's meant to give you some level of direction. It's pretty fragmented. It's very much biased towards channels that we can track better. But in essence, it rewards tactics that are closest to the conversion. And so this is where teams end up building this super sophisticated data engines for reallocating budgets. But in essence, it doesn't really answer the real growth question, which is essentially what is truly incremental. And that stays unanswered.
Right. And you just touched on something really that hit me there, because I've been marketing for over 25 years. And you're right. We're always been chasing more data and trying to figure out the right systems to prove what's working in fragments. So that really makes sense. And you're talking about stuff that has changed pretty recently, right? That old measurement playbooks just aren't working anymore, and marketers are being held more accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've noticed over the past 5 to 6 years, or even longer than that, where two big shifts have happened pretty much at the same time, right? You started realizing that digital signals have been getting worse, the inability to collect enough data to connect the dots, as well as then the whole ecosystem and media landscape itself and consumer landscape have started becoming extremely complex.
Right.
On the signal part, you have privacy changes and shorter attribution windows, cookie loss and IDFA loss and all of that. And then on the other side, you have a complex ecosystem. No one is just on Google and Meta anymore. It's easy if you start off with that, but people are investing in influencers and CTV and retail media and all of that. And in essence, all of this makes the numbers really fuzzy. And that's why this older playbooks just don't work anymore. Assuming you can stitch everything together perfectly, it just starts breaking, right?
It does. And if you're a marketer who is used to seeing Meta performing and newer channels come in, display, TV ads, even TikTok is a main player right now. Absolutely. Then you come in and you're doing the best you can with what you know. And do you see sometimes even smart teams start over investing in the lower funnel?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen teams that are in huge companies, completely over investing in low funnels, because low funnels typically give you a very clean feedback, right? And that's what they're chasing after. Right? I call it the last click drug, and it's not necessarily going to be better for growth, right? And if you're a smart operator who's under pressure, you're going to just put dollars into places which are going to give you the results that you need, right? Retargeting, branded search, high intent audiences, right? It looks very efficient and it's very easy to defend in a meeting with your CFO. And by the way, finance teams love it as well, right? Because it's all very controllable and everything adds up in that sense. But this is the trap, right? This is what is known as the advertising doom loop, where those channels are essentially often harvesting demand that was created somewhere else, right? And also a demand by your own customer base, which is sales that would have happened anyway. And so that efficiency that you're seeing is essentially not true, right? And that's how you end up in this loop. And then people start panicking and, top of the funnel gets cut. and new acquisition, customer acquisition starts, slowing. And as soon as you don't fill the funnel, your business becomes highly dependent on the lower funnel strategies, right? Which then essentially, you find that you're constantly pushing towards that direction, and you end up losing a ton of money.
Yeah. And that last click is what us as marketers really hung our hat on for a very long time because it's platform attributed.
And they still do.
Yes. Yeah. And then all about the customer journey. And what you just pointed out there is that can be counted twice, because that's really purchases that would have happened anyway if it's in store, if you purchased online. And then Meta or Google could say, hey, actually, that was last click to us, so we're going to take it. So then it doesn't hold up anymore. And finance leaders like to see the numbers, but then it's just not lining up, right?
Absolutely. I think it always comes down to that. Yeah.
So as co-founder of Lifesight, you've seen CMOs and CFOs, the finance leaders, disagree. And you kind of just broke it down a little bit, but since you've seen it firsthand, like, what is the disagreement? Actually, like, what is happening, and why is it focused mostly on marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think finance folks, they are relying on the marketing team to tell them what good looks like or what proof looks like. Right. And so when marketing folks tell them that proof is in the ROAS, they kind of disagree on that. Right. And then they start asking, like, what time horizon, should this business be optimizing for? And the CMOs actually know that this growth isn't just a short-term conversion play, right? They care about brand building and demand creation over a longer period of time, building brand equity, creative, and all of that good stuff, right? But the finance leaders are typically trying to always ask, when is the return going to come, right? How confident are we of this return? And what happens if we spend more or less next quarter? And that's extremely difficult to answer when you don't have the real numbers in front of you. So this tension just keeps building up over time. And marketing under pressure always just keeps throwing out these numbers like ROAS and CAC and attributed conversions just to save themselves. And then the finance team's obviously trying to look at the real numbers, right? What is the P&L? And that's where the disagreements come. And marketing feels like they constantly have to go and beg for budgets. And they want that certainty at the same speed that they need the answers to get finance, right? And so this is where it is brands that actually win in the long term, which I've seen, like really large brands with huge teams who know what they're doing. They are the ones that share this common language, right? Everyone has to speak the language of business. Here's what we know causally happened, and this is what we're going to test next. And then this alignment just suddenly becomes this huge competitive advantage.
Yes. And I think you just completely nailed it, because marketing is trying to prove, and then they keep trying too hard. So let's simply put it, like, what is the difference between knowing and guessing? Guessing might not be the right word, but it's kind of what marketing is doing, what you're talking about, like just trying to prove and prove. So what's the difference between knowing and guessing in marketing performance?
Knowing is actually essentially something where you can answer the counterfactual question with confidence, right? What did marketing cause to happen that would not have happened otherwise? And so guessing is when you're just using your gut feel. You've been in marketing for years and you just know that certain channels work. They move up when you spend in those channels. And that's just, you can't prove that one caused the other though. Right. And so this is where the disconnect is. And most teams think they know because they have the nice, beautiful dashboards. But those dashboards don't say exactly what is actually causing this change. Right. And so this is where the shift that we're seeing happening in the industry.
Yeah. So put away the dashboards, sit down with your list of questions, right? Like, is this channel good? Or what happens if we remove this channel?
Yeah, that's right.
I also hear you kind of talking about a hierarchy of decisions. So what does that mean in this practice that you're explaining?
I think everyone goes to, especially marketing practitioners, they go to their job every day having to make very strict certain decisions, right, at different cadences. Using the wrong measurement for the wrong decision is where everything breaks down. Right. And so everyone has been using attribution numbers or last click ROAS to make very huge multi-million-dollar decisions. And that is detrimental. And so at the top, if you look at decisions to be made, at the top, you have your strategic decisions, right? Happens like at a quarterly level, where your budget mix, your growth targets, how much to invest, top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel for customer acquisition versus retention, and so on and so forth. And then you have your tactical decisions, right? You have your channel reallocations, what creative strategy we're going to do, and the strategy shifts, where we're going to scale and where we're going to cut. Those are typically monthly decisions. And then you have your operational decisions, which are your daily bid changes and your pacing and your audiences and your creative testing. And that's very high frequency, right? That happens typically in platform and stuff like that. So the mistake happens is when everyone is trying to run that whole business or that whole decision hierarchy with that one single measurement tool, that sentence, essentially. You're going to over-reward, under-credit, and over-credit across the entire board.
Yes, well said. And so that kind of moves into, I'd say, like the next level, next generation of marketing, where it's causal attribution, experiments, MMM, the mixed modeling media. And let's give our listeners a full overview of how that just takes sophisticated brands to the next level for growth. And this is truly the secret to how sophisticated brands grow to be enterprise or reach their goals. So let's kind of start with, breaking it down like MMM, experiments, and attribution, and how it all plays together in a unified measurement operating system.
For sure. Yeah. In essence, if you think about this tooling, this new kind of unified measurement tooling, as they call it now, the industry has kind of come to a consensus that this is the way forward. It's all about using these different tools for different jobs, essentially. And the biggest issue we had is we're using the wrong tools for the wrong job earlier. So everyone has been using MMM for decades now, right? It's over 50 or 60 years old, and it's proven to do its job, right? And that's your strategic backbone, as I mentioned earlier. And this is essentially good for understanding the full media mix, right? Everyone kind of measures in silos, and that's very detrimental as well. You have to understand that the budget is a single budget driving a single KPI, and money in, money out. And you need to know that your money is going across the entire channel mix and measured across the entire channel mix. So this is where MMM is going to help you make some of those bigger, where should we invest decisions. And then you have your experiments itself, right? Your experiments are is what they call the gold standard in measurement. It's your scientific method of control versus exposed groups, and they are how you validate things with certainty, right? And especially when attribution is biased, this is how you prove that, hey, if I do a holdout, I'm going to understand what it actually drove, right, the channel. And so this is essentially for that. And then attribution, of course, when used correctly, is an operational tool, right? It's good for understanding the ranking of all your different campaigns and optimizing it within a channel, and your creative variants, your keywords, your targeting, your pacing. And it's not meant to be used as a single source of cross-channel truth. And so when you bring all of these three things together, you have the MMM generating the hypothesis for testing, experiments that validate and calibrate the MMM, and then attribution gets adjusted with what you call the incrementality factor, and that now helps you bring it closer to the ground truth. And that's what unified measurement truly is. It's one big measurement system that works in tandem to create what you call a decision support system.
And then you feel confident as a marketer bringing this into finance because it is a single source of truth based on all of the other platforms pulled in together instead of being siloed and fragmented.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very well said. Experiments, you mentioned holdouts. That's like a really cool, interesting one that we can come into play. I'm thinking like of a few examples. Do you have like one example that you can give us on a holdout experiment that helped prove that, something was driving incrementality?
Yeah, it's a simple geotest, right? Essentially, you create a geotest, you design an experiment, and you would essentially hold out ads in certain regions or hold out campaigns in certain regions. So you know that those regions are not being exposed to the ads, and those are people who would buy your product anyway, right? And the entire country is buying your product. So this is how we essentially help marketers measure their incrementality across all channels in an apples to apples way, right? As opposed to trying to force fit different measurement tools to different KPIs and so on.
Yes, I just love that part of it as a marketer, because you could really pull out and stand behind yourself as a marketer. Like, hey, those sales would have happened anyway, but we did this holdout test, and look, this TV ad or streaming ad or whatever we did actually caused these sales. So that's one of my favorite things to see the aha moments with brands, especially through the Lifesight platform.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So before Lifesight, what was the moment you realized marketing data was becoming less trustworthy?
So I come from very long time ago, the agency world. So bought tons of media back in the day, but then ended up being a product builder and spending a lot of time with customers who are spending a lot of money. And I'll be in rooms with them and essentially see these performance dashboards, fancy, flashy dashboards that show a ton of metrics and ton of numbers, but at the end of the day, the business is losing money. And so that's like the immediate question is, why isn't these data points or these insights helping them make those decisions that are going to help them drive the business, right? It's not like, their business is bad. It's just that they're spending in the wrong places, right? And so this is where we realize that truly grow profitably and sustainably, you have to play nice with the CFO and essentially get into the real business of generating profits, right? And so this is where we figured out that, hey, there's a way to kind of do this in a better way. And figure out that all of this data that you're seeing on the dashboard is not going to help you grow your business, but truly understanding the why and what is truly driving your business in a causal manner is everything, right? And so this is where we decided that we're going to kind of understand how to reduce the amount of data that we collect or use high quality data that we have and make sure that we use it right and measure it in the right way and not just do reporting for the sake of doing reporting.
So you built Lifesight actually for yourself to use first.
In a way, obviously for our clients, we wanted to really prove that marketing was really working, right? Because there's so many unanswered questions out there. And so we were obsessed with trying to solve that problem.
Very cool. And yeah, you're kind of ahead of your time, right? Congrats on all the success. I love being part of the Lifesight team and seeing the market catching up, right? To understanding, like it's a very exciting time to be a marketer, I'd say.
Yeah. Not many companies can say they've been in the measurement game for 8 years.
Yes. Yeah. 8 years. Best of the best, right? Can you think of a time as you've been building Lifesight, one of those like aha moments with a brand when they discovered that their best channel actually wasn't driving their most growth?
I can name quite a few, but it's a typical pattern that we always see more than once, which is a brand marketer coming to us and saying, hey, look, this is my numbers and look at the hero. Look at the ROAS. It's the best channel, right? And usually it's something like retargeting and branded search or something like that, because they're so, close to the purchase and also the reporting looks incredible. And so then all I tell them is, let's just run a test, right? First thing you do is just run a test, and the results are often, very sobering to them, right? When they realize that it's barely incremental. That some channels are actually driving some value. We've seen some successful retargeting and branded campaigns, but they're nowhere near what the dashboard was saying that it drives. And so this is where you truly get that aha moment goes off in the head, realizing that, hey, I'm just serving ads to the people that would have converted anyway. And so this is where the best teams that understand that and then are able to communicate that with their finance teams and make that change. And they don't have to say that this channel is bad, right? It doesn't mean that. They know that they have a reallocation problem and that they've been funding wrong channels in a big way. And so just knowing that is already a huge achievement just by running that simple test. And now they take that portion of the budget and then they move it upstream, typically, right, to more prospecting campaigns and more acquisition campaigns, and now suddenly drives them results over a period of time, right? You see that result coming in, trickling in. And that's when they start realizing, okay, this is the mindset that we needed all the while.
Yeah, to shift to kind of the decision confidence that you can have.
That's right.
If a VP of marketing is listening and just heard everything you just said, which is a little bit more complicated, you explained it very well. But if the VP of marketing is listening, what could they do in the next 30 to 45 days? And where should they start to make and improve that confidence in decisions?
I think plenty of marketing leaders, they want to run tests. They say they run tests, but they don't actually, right? And so I think the biggest thing you can do is pick your highest spending areas or channels, your top 3 channels, and where you so-called have the most confidence on, and you're saying these are my winners, and put it through a test. Stress test it. You don't need 30 dashboards or whatever, right? You just need one very clear testing cadence that would actually give you the truth that you need. So pick that one decision, create that hypothesis, right? Is this channel driving the incrementality that it says it is? How much incremental is it, right? And then you start aligning that metric with finance, right? Build it into your system of decisions and train. Let your finance team get marketing literate and you get finance literate as well. Understand what is the true contribution margin and so on and so forth. Then once you have that result, start making it a process, say, within your organization. Create this measurement program, like a CRM program that you would have in your organization, and continuously be testing, right? So adopt this whole testing culture within the organization. And so then you build a MMM model and so on and so forth if you're spending enough money and you have a huge channel mix. And so that's when you get deeper into making measurement part of your daily life and adopting some of these more advanced techniques. Yeah.
Seems like that first step you just explained might be one of the hardest steps for marketers, because you're saying you have to turn off one of your best performing channels, and not for very long. You know, we can talk about the length of time, but
so how do you to not lose too much money? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's like, ooh, but that was my best performing, and it needs to perform. How do you get marketers to shift their mindset to this is actually going to help?
The whole idea is to essentially make them understand that what is the result that's going to come. Making the right decisions with the right directional data is going to help you achieve something much better in the longer term. We're always struggling, right? Marketers are always in the state of struggle. They're constantly fighting for their job and constantly fighting with the finance teams. And they're the highest turnover when it comes to the entire C-level, everyone in the boardroom. That's not the way to approach the problem. There is a solution out there. So you got to take these big, bold steps and big, bold bets and start using scientific methods to achieve the outcomes that you desire. Because you have the budget, you have the creative prowess. You just got to kind of go in and get the right measurement in place.
Yes. And that is truly how you've seen brands at Lifesight scale and grow from pre-enterprise to enterprise and grow marketing teams, and people get promoted. So it really does work. Right. And you've seen it over 8 years.
100%. I've seen CMOs, gaining that confidence and now having a seat at the table, right? Typically, it's only the CEO and CFO who are like running the entire business. And now the CMO is a key part of that growth story. They have that confidence and that ability to speak their same language, and they're no more just a person who runs campaigns.
Yes, good way to put it. So if you had advice for marketing teams, maybe just one, maybe two things, what should they stop doing immediately?
So stop doing last click reporting, and treating it like the truth, like it's, everything that matters in each channel. You have a cross-channel strategy, right? I'm assuming you're a bigger brand. You are running campaigns across all these different channels and tactics. If you're still using last click as your reporting method or attribution method or model, you are in for, trouble. Right? As simple as that. And stop trying to chase this deterministic answers, stop over rewarding like speed over correctness, right? Stop trying to be so deterministic in your answers and start getting comfortable with this uncertainty. Everyone knows that essentially marketing is meant to change consumer behavior, and that is extremely difficult to do and extremely unpredictable. And so measurement is such as well, right? It's uncertainty all the time. And so this is where a fast answer, getting a so-called deterministic fast answer, can be more expensive in the long term than getting a slower answer that's directionally correct. So this is what I would tell them to start doing.
That was absolute gold right there. You summed it all up for marketers that really do need to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's where the growth happens and the change. And it helps the company and the growth, and it also just helps you as a marketer, is what you're saying as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, we might want to end on that note, but before we say goodbye, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
I would just say that the technologies out there, marketers, the best marketing teams in the world who are doing the best work in the best work of their lives are doing the right thing, right? They're spending a lot of time on creative. They're spending a lot of time on understanding the customer, and that is where it all matters. But the place where, when it comes to spending all of those millions of dollars, you've got to really understand that last 10%, which is understanding what truly happened. And so did your marketing actually move the needle? And so as soon as you can answer those questions, then it becomes this amazing growth loop where you keep producing great content and great campaigns. And you know for a certain fact that measurement piece is always right, and at least directionally right. It's never going to be perfect, but at least it's directionally right. And that's where you start getting very confident that's tell marketers to kind of focus on doing that. Yeah.
Well, Rohit, thank you for sharing your brilliant marketing mind with us today. And until next time, stay profitable.
Thank you. Bye, Joie.